Some of Jesus' miracles sound pretty incredible. Walking on water, healing leprosy, turning water into wine. But none of them seem so incredible as the really big one, rising from the grave. People have been looking for a way to cheat death for centuries. Spiritualists have claimed to receive messages from beyond. Eastern religions have claimed that you can come back again and again as an entirely different person. In our own day, we've seen a wave of interest in both cryogenics, freezing your body after death in the hope that it can eventually be resuscitated, and NDEs, or near-death experiences, in which people die on the operating table but then make a recovery, having visited the afterlife in the meantime. So there's a lot of wishful thinking about death, and we're right to be suspicious of any big claims about it. They can simply reflect what people want to believe, rather than what's true. Many people assume that the resurrection story is just another example of that. Christians didn't like the thought that Jesus was dead and gone, so they started telling fanciful stories about him coming back. Over time, people started believing that it had really happened. It all got written down in the Bible, and now Christians have to believe it because the Bible says so. Isn't that what happened? Actually, no. In fact, we know an awful lot about what happened during the weekend when Jesus died, and it gives us a real puzzle to solve. In fact, for 2 millennia now, people have been trying to explain away the resurrection, and they still don't have a convincing alternative story. If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, we have no idea what took place. That's all because of 3 stubborn facts. The cross could not have been survived. Jesus was really dead. Second, the body could not have been stolen. It's a physical impossibility, as people at the time quickly saw. Third, the tomb could not have been confused. It wasn't just that the disciples went to the wrong grave, saw it was empty, and jumped to conclusions before anybody could stop them. In this session, we'll look more closely at all 3 facts. But let's start with the first. The cross could not have been survived. Sometimes, people have suggested that Jesus may have shammed death, then recovered consciousness in the tomb, and slipped away to see his disciples and convince them that he had really come back from death. Is that possible? No, it's not. For one thing, Jesus had been wounded so severely that it's unthinkable that he would recover. The cold air of the tomb wouldn't have revived him. It would have finished him off with a massive catatonic seizure. His hands and ankles had been shattered by iron nails. He wasn't going anywhere in a hurry. In addition, he was wrapped up in strips of cloth, bound together with spices, which were melting and sticking the bandages together in a hard cement shell. He'd have needed superhuman strength to burst free from those. He had died more quickly than expected, and so when the body was taken down from the cross, it had to be checked carefully at Pilate's command. The Roman governor was leaving nothing to chance. And it was only when Jesus had been certified dead that his body was released for burial. But let's suppose that somehow he was still alive. If he could have walked and pushed the stone away from the front of his tomb with those mangled wrists, there was a guard outside the tomb. Probably this consisted of 9 Roman soldiers divided into groups of 3, on duty for 3 hours each, then off duty but still present for another 3 hours. There was no way to get out. He was stuck. And so, we can be pretty sure that Jesus didn't simply escape from the tomb and stage a fraudulent resurrection by clever trickery. Even if he had somehow got away, he would have looked a pretty sorry sight, and he wouldn't have looked anything like the Lord of Life returning in triumph after defeating death. So, he couldn't have fooled anybody much. That doesn't prove the resurrection. It just shows that the death really happened. We need a little more evidence than that. What do you think we should be looking for? What would convince you?